Greetings and welcome to the long-awaited 6th episode of Oblivion Modding Showcases, and as always, I'm your host, Dark Elf Guy. And today, we're finally going to be doing our Mage-themed episode of Oblivion Modding Showcases, taking a look at 10 Mage-themed mods. And I must apologize for how long this episode has been in production. It's, been over a year since I started working on it, but I just never found, quite the time to finish it. But rest assured, episode 7 is already mostly complete, and I will be returning to a more, hopefully regular schedule moving forward with any luck. And of course, it should be noted that while this particular episode is Mage Magic themed, there's far too many Mage themed mods to fit into one showcase episode here. So if we're missing, anything here, don't worry. I will be doing another Mage Magic themed episode for episode 16 probably. And anyway, you'll find down the links for all the mods that we'll be looking at here today, down in the video description below, along with timestamp annotations to jump to particular segments of this video. Let's just get started with our popular mod of the week, which this time around is Frostcrag Village by Arthmoor. And now I must admit, this wasn't the mod I had originally planned to cover in this slot. I had intended to showcase another mod that changes the Wizard's Tower Frostcrag here, but after running into more than a few issues and delaying the episode for over a month, I decided to, go ahead with this one instead. And much like a lot of Arthmoor's classic town mods, this one adds a small village at the foot of Frostcrag Tower, hence the name. And it's really a fairly small place with about 4 buildings in total, including a tavern, just sort of built atop the mountain here. And as you might expect, given that this is an Arthmoor mod and all that, it of course comes with new quests for you to do, and tons of unique dialogue and a bit of a background on the settlement here, which is something I always, appreciate when playing a new mod that adds new locations to the game world. And in any event, there's about 3 or so new quests to do here, some of them involving fighting and killing mercenaries, while others are more intended for mage-like characters. Hence the inclusion with our, little magic-themed episode here, such as a quest involving the village's frozen guardians, which were accidentally broken by a resident mage who, of course, now needs your help to repair them, which will launch you off onto an interesting little quest here. But we're not going to spoil everything, so instead we're just going to be taking a look at a few of the interiors here, including the tavern, which is a pretty small place, basically just one open room with a counter and a table for the locals to gather. But you will find food and drink for sale, and the innkeeper here is fairly chatty and, just a bit gossipy. There are tons of background information about the town and the residents who live there, with just a lot of dialogue about everything, which is again a really nice feature that I personally appreciate, and part of what makes Arthmoor's town mods worth playing, since they always seem to include interesting quests and stories to read. And we're also going to be just taking a quick look at one of the homes here, which is fairly cozy looking. And all in all, while this might not completely fit our theme here, this is another classic Arthmoor town mod that's well worth checking out for yourself. For our house mod of the week this week, we have Mad Mage's Tower by Fit, and with this mod you'll now find a mysterious yet scenic tower along the mountainous borders between Cyrodiil and I think that's Skyrim, or possibly Hammerfell, there in the distance there. And this tower is basically just a ways north of Coral, following a pretty steep road up the mountainside. Now the tower here has a pretty unique design, and given its perch right atop the mountain, it has some amazing views of the rest of Cyrodiil far down below, with an outdoor balcony providing you with a nice platform from which to gaze upon Cyrodiil from afar. And now going inside, you'll find a small but without question magical themed tower home to call your own, with a number of both literary and gaming references, seemingly incorporated into the design here, such as everyone's favourite menacing looking chest, luggage from the Discworld series of novels by Terry Pratchett, who I believe just acts like a container here, as well as what appears to be the Necromonicon on the bookshelf over here, and a number of other magical artifacts that you really shouldn't mess with, since some of them have, well, curious and painful side effects. There's also a new wizard's outfit in here, which we'll be taking a look at here in a moment. And going upstairs, you'll find the Mage's Lab with a number of curious devices, as well as an impish servant, who seems to just fly around up here, as well as some, oddities such as glowing orbs, a heart of darkness, a boiling over cauldron of something, and of course an alchemical lab. There's a bit of a background story behind the place, with a sort of journal left behind by the previous owner, detailing some of his experiments. And there's also a rather interesting and perhaps terrifying teleporter of sorts at the base of the tower that can quickly take you up to the top, which is, well, just an interesting experience. And real quick, I wanted to show off these traditional wizard garments with the stereotypical hat and robes that you'll find in the tower, so that you can really look the part of a sort of mad wizard. And this week's game theme of the week is Midas Magic Spells by Exilva. And, well, this is probably going to be by far the largest mod we're going to be, taking a look at here today. And we're really only going to be, scratching the surface here. Midas Magic Spells is just an incredibly massive and complicated mod. that it's really a bit difficult to show off in a timely manner, and I sincerely doubt it really needs, any introduction anyway. I think just about everyone already, knows about or plays with Midas Magic. But I did receive about a dozen recommendations to showcase it in this episode, so if somehow you haven't already, played with Midas Magic, we'll be covering just a sampling of all the things it does here. There will obviously be skipping over far more content than we'll be showcasing here, so just keep that in mind. And anyway, this mod adds a new shop to the courtyard of the Arcane University, where you'll find the shop owner, Midas, who has a bit of dialogue explaining the new spell system that Midas Magic adds to the game, as well as a number of books that provide a guide on how to create new spells using this new magic system. And the main book you'll be using here contains a majority list of the some 300 new spells added by Midas Magic, with descriptions for each spell, what they do, and the ingredients you'll need to make each spell. Since the new spell making process is, kind of like alchemy, you have to brew each spell using very specific ingredients, which could be alchemical ingredients, armor pieces, weapons, clothing, or just miscellaneous junk that you might find on your travels. And when you find a spell that you want to craft, you'll need to copy down the ingredient list and throw the ingredients into this reactor here and then cast a spell on it. Personally, I always use a flare myself, but technically any spell will do. Then you just grab the resulting new magical component from the reactor and then consume it, which will add the new spell to your, personal spell library, and you'll be able to cast it willy-nilly wherever you want. Assuming, of course, you meet the skill requirements anyway, and also have enough magicka, because, some of these spells do take up quite a bit of magicka. And now, next up, we're going to be showing off some of these spells here, though keep in mind that with over 300 spells, we'll only be looking at maybe 20 or 30 in the showcase, simply again because it would just take far too long to do a detailed look at everything that this mod does. But anyway, there's a ton of really cool and creative spells here, including the ability to summon a catapult to your location, or to cast a Seeker spell, which comes in a variety of flavors such as fire, ice, sparks, and so on and so forth. And these Seeker spells will basically go around your immediate environment and to find hostile targets to attack, which is really, pretty handy, especially when you're running into that classic "you can't sleep here, enemies are nearby, but I can't figure out where they are." You can also freeze enemies, which basically freezes them in place, or momentarily turns them into solid ice and prevents them from moving, which is quite handy when you're in a bit of a bind and need to stop one of your attackers real quick. And another fun little spell here is these spinning discs that you can summon, which will just bounce around the environment and damage anything or anyone they come in contact with, including yourself, but it's kind of, neat to see them bounce off the walls here. And speaking of bouncing things, another interesting little group of spells here are various destructive balls, such as snowballs, magma balls, and so on and so forth that you can summon, which will bounce around an environment until they come in contact with something. And if you're using them in the exterior world space, which is really not their best use, they can travel surprisingly far. And now taking a look at a few more, perhaps more generic and straightforward spells, there's a new magic missile spell, which does, pretty much what you might think. And of course, now you can just shout, I cast magic missile every time you use it. And another fairly easy to use spell here is the Plasma Shard spell, which sends off 5 highly powerful magical projectiles towards your opponents. And I really love this one because it does a great job of just slaughtering your foes. And you can also do a more spread out attack instead of just, casting them all in a row like I did here. And now just moving on, another rather useful spell that's been added in here is a Mark and Recall spell. That works much the same way as the old, Mark and Recall back in Morrowind. They're not exactly the same. You can mark up to about 8 separate locations and then use Recall to teleport yourself to this sort of mystical realm, where you can then, use one of the gates here to jump to one of your previously marked locations, which is quite handy since I don't think Vanilla Oblivion had a Mark and Recall system before. And anyway, taking a look at some of the more destruction-based spells, some of the more useful close-range spells that you'll find include a variety of area of effect spells that center on your character, such as a field of poison gas that paralyzes anyone immediately around you. And this field of gas even moves with your character, paralyzing anyone it comes into contact with. And another spell in a similar vein is a ring of fire that forms around your character, setting anyone and anything it comes into contact with on fire. And this is a pretty useful high damage spell, so it'll pretty much kill any low level creatures it comes into contact with, as you can see here. And another similar spell is a Ring of Blades that does the same thing only with swords instead of fire. And there's a ton of other, fairly similar spells to this. And now real quick, just because I find it, somewhat amusing, there's also a snowball spell that basically summons a bouncing snowball that'll just bounce around the environment and cause frost damage to any creatures it comes into contact with. And I know it's very similar to the other types of spells that we, looked at earlier, but snowballs do kind of fit in with the holiday season and all, it's been winter and all that. But moving on to a different type of spell here, you'll also find a spell that allows you to summon stone barricades. So you can basically set up fortifications anywhere in the game world. Like, say you want to stop a horde of skeletons, well, now you can just, block the path with a few carefully placed stone walls, which is a neat little, addition here. And another curious bit of magic that you can also conjure up now is an exploding sort of robotic mine thing that goes around the environment and searches out targets to blow up. Now, of course, it's only effective so long as the creatures you're trying to kill don't have ranged weapons, because then they'll just, explode on impact. But still, this presents some new ways to clear out dungeons. And another just neat little spell here is the ability to summon tornadoes, which you can, then launch towards the enemies and watch them get flung about by the sheer winds of a funnel cloud. And this is one of the more fun spells to play around with, just due to, Oblivion's ridiculous ragdoll effects. And, it's really quite handy for just dispersing crowds of enemies all at once. And, gosh, we're going to be skipping over just so many spells here. But just one more thing I wanted to show off here before we move on to summoning companions and all that is the Magic Carpet. A new ride that you can summon to your side, which can fly quickly and easily through the lands of Cyrodiil at breakneck speeds, faster than any horse. And wow, this is just a really fun one. You can easily travel from the Imperial City to Anvil in practically no time at all, just sitting by would-be highwaymen and bandits without stopping for a break, and this is, certainly one of the more convenient spells in Midas Magic. And now, in addition to flying carpets, you can also summon all sorts of companions to fight alongside you, such as creatures made entirely out of watermelons for some reason, some sort of blob-like creature, dread knights, fire sprites again, angels, and just, so much more. And these companions are great for helping out to, even out the numbers when fighting through dungeons, following any foes that come across the paths. And now again, we're just going to be skipping over a lot here, since Midas Magic Spells adds just so much, not just 300 new spells with new ways to approach the game, but also, new realms to visit and explore, new quests to go on, and new dungeons to fight through. It's an absurdly massive mod, but we've already, gone on for far too long here, so I'm going to leave off our showcase with a bang. And what better way to end our showcase than with the explosion of a nuke-like spell? For one of the best and most powerful spells added by Midas Magic is a nuclear blast that'll kill everything in a fairly large radius, setting up a mushroom cloud into the sky, so you can kill large numbers of enemies in a dungeon or, just terrorize the citizens of Cyrodiil. Midas Magic Spells has all this and just so much more, and if you're planning to play as a magic user, there's absolutely no reason why you shouldn't use this mod. It makes the magic system just so much better than the vanilla-based game. Next up, we have our Dungeon Mod of the Week, which this week is the Scarlet Monastery by Uberman123. And yes, this isn't exactly a magic or mage-themed mod, but I was, a little hard-pressed to find anything specifically mage-related when it comes to dungeon mods. And the Scarlet Monastery does have a lot of, magical foes and boss fights, so it's close enough, I'd say. Anyway, on to the actual showcase here. With this mod installed, you'll now find a giant monastery in sort of mid-eastern Cyrodiil, really pretty far away from just about everything. And you can see it on the map here, and to say the least, you'll be doing a fair bit of walking to get to it. But anyway, this is basically a carbon copy of the Scarlet Monastery found in World of Warcraft. And for those who don't know, it's kind of a mid-level group dungeon designed for levels 30 through 40 from what I remember. I've actually played through it myself a few times back in the day, though devil knows which zone it was located in. But, regardless, it was a pretty fun dungeon in World of Warcraft, and the mod here seems to be a pretty faithful recreation of it. Much like in World of Warcraft, this is the home of the Scarlet Crusade, a religious organization that has an almost blind zeal for the eradication of the undead and a strong affinity for magic, with both paladins and mages making up the bulk of their ranks here. Now, the actual World of Warcraft dungeon was fairly, though not overly difficult for a mid-range group to go through. Of course, with our Midas Magic Spells here, we're going to be, making quick work of a lot of these NPCs in here, but rest assured, this is a dungeon meant for, characters about level 15 or so. And anyway, much like the dungeon in World of Warcraft, the Scarlet Monastery is divided into 3 sections: the Library Wing, the Undercroft, and the Cathedral. Which is, of course, where the final boss fights take place, and you'll have to fight through both the Library Wing and the Undercroft in order to get the keys, in order to, proceed on to the final Cathedral zone. And the layout here is pretty much identical to that found in World of Warcraft, so old-time fans will get a nice, little nostalgia rush here. And now, since I don't want to spoil the whole dungeon, especially if you haven't actually played through the World of Warcraft version yet, I'm just going to be showing off the library wing of the Scarlet Monastery here, where you'll find mostly just mages to fight as you work your way through the dungeon here, though there's also a few paladins around. And there's pretty much, non-stop fighting the whole way through, and anyway, it's an extremely fun dungeon romp, at least in my opinion. And while it might not, perfectly match our theme here, I'd still highly recommend checking it out. There's at least a couple of hours of content here to, keep you occupied. Now for this week's items of the week, we have animated staves by Exin and Echo Knight. And now, like a lot of magical items mods out there, this one adds a variety of new mages staves to render staves in the Imperial City. And there's about 6 in total for about 200 gold each, and it should be noted that according to the author, these staves do respawn, so you can always, buy more in the future. And now each of these staves is, well, incredibly unique looking with animated effects such as, rotating rings, or animated fire particles, or so on and so forth. And each of these staves looks, pretty amazing, I have to say. And they actually, start out as unenchanted staves, so you can, just make them whatever you want, instead of, being forced to use a pre-made enchantment. This gives you a greater degree of customization, so you can, just add some epic enchantments to these staves to match their epic appearance. And to just take a look at another one of these staves here, again, I've just got to say that these are just really creative and cool looking, and are perfectly suited to, giving your character that sort of epic wizard vibe that you might be going for. And some of these really do have a lot of just moving parts, like this one, that has some cool little, orbs rotating around the top of the staff here, like moons going around a planet, which is an interesting style for a magical staff, really. And last but not least, there's an Iliad style staff here that you can just sort of see. And this one is probably my personal favorite out of the entire batch, so, each are pretty unique and epic looking. And if you want a few new and unenchanted staves to turn into, magical weapons, this mod is certainly a great one to check out. This week's quest for the week is Mage's Guild Quest by the Mage's Guild Quest project team, including David Brasher and Nell Speed. Now, as you might imagine, this mod expands and adds new quests to the Mage's Guild of Cyrodiil, including a massive 43 new quests for you to do, including a number that you can repeat more than once if you so desire. And in total, there's 7 new quest givers found at various branches of the Mage's Guild across Cyrodiil. And each of these quest givers specializes in a particular type of quest, like this fellow in Breville gives quests dealing with necromancers and the rooting out and destroying of necromancer cults. He'll put you in charge of a team of mages who will join you in battle to go off the necromancer scourge, and yes, this does mean some of the quests are a bit more, combat themed than others, but this merely serves to provide a bit of variety. And given how dangerous the necromancer threat is in the Mage's Guild quest line, it's nice to have a few quests that actually go on the offensive like this. Though having said that, there were of course already a couple of quests like that in vanilla Oblivion. And anyway, after you complete each quest, you can return for a small reward, usually a spell or scroll, or something of that nature. And of course, get another quest from each quest giver with a similar theme, such as, more necromancers to kill, or, something else like that. And some of the other quests involve, things like collecting dues from various members of the Mage's Guild, which kind of harkens back to some of the early Mage's Guild quests in Morrowind, particularly those from the Balmora branch, where, you were often sent out to collect dues at first. And these aren't, challenging quests or anything by any means, but they do give you something a bit more to do. And other quest givers involve more traditional Mage's Guild activities like alchemy and collecting ingredients. And most of these quests have, at the very least, a little bit of storytelling involved, which is always, a nice touch, and it keeps you immersed in the, game world and all that. And overall, this is probably one of the larger mage-themed quest mods out there, and if you're, a fan of the Mage's Guild, you should definitely give this mod a try. It just adds a ton of new content with hours of new gameplay, and is definitely worth, just taking a look at and playing for yourself. Next up, we have our Landmass Mod of the week, which this week is Theron by Garnet. And now, strictly speaking, I suppose this isn't exactly a landmass mod so much as it is a giant flying city and palace in the skies over Tamriel. But much like with our Dungeon Mod of the Week, I was hard-pressed to find an actual, specifically mage-themed landmass mod to cover for this episode, which is part of the reason why this video was delayed so long. And so in the end, I thought, we just go with this one, even if it is a bit of a stretch to call it a landmass. But, still, anyway. Theron is essentially an Iliad-style floating city with a sort of UFO circular design with massive crystals underneath, which is, presumably what keeps this, whole giant floating city thing in the air. And the city itself is divided off into 3 ascending rings about the base of this floating island, with various shops and market stalls on the lower 2 levels, and the absolute top level dedicated to a player house and a palace so you can, call your own. And yes, this is pretty much just a house mod, all built with a ton of features, more so than your typical, player home. Now, real quick, we're just going to take a look around the marketplace down on the lower levels of this floating city and palace, which includes a number of market stalls with merchants selling a variety of wares that you can purchase. Some are new and unique to this mod, I think, while others are from common modders' resources and the like. And real quick, you can see the city on the map here. It's actually a little ways from Cyrodiil over, I think it's Valenwood here, and this means you will need to, disable borders to use this mod and all that. And just checking out a few buildings next, we're going to first stop by the local tavern, and pretty much the entire town here uses a mixed Imperial and Aeolid style of architecture. And you may notice there's a bit of a blurry camera effect going on here, and I do apologize for that. Some of the video footage I have was taken before I disabled motion blur with the newest version of Oblivion Reloaded, so just try to ignore it for now, and keep in mind that our next episode of Oblivion Modding Showcases will not have these visual issues. But anyway, moving on to the main feature of this mod, we're going to check out the Palace, a massive player home for you to call your own. And this place is absolutely lavish and really quite beautiful, I would say, with a lovely entry hall, including a central fountain, and I have to admit, exploring the whole palace would probably take too long for the purposes of this video, so we're just going to, check out a few rooms here, including this bedroom here, which is quite nicely finished and detailed, including a private dining area and study, as well as a bathroom with a tub over here to the side. And of course, there's a number of bedrooms in this palace for you to use, or to give over to, some of your companions or NPC servants if you have any. And each room sort of has a color scheme, such as blue or purple or green, and each is certainly, quite scenic looking and wonderfully finished and decorated. And moving on to some of the public rooms here, you can see the palace dining room, with a long banquet table that can seat quite a few guests around it. And you also notice that there's, several pre-decorated display cases built into the walls here, where you can, show off the wealth of this Aeolid palace. And where there's a dining room, there's of course a kitchen, with food preparation tables, stoves and ovens for cooking, a private dining area for the servants, sinks for washing off food, and really for being a palace kitchen, this room is just, feels incredibly homey and cozy, with, quite a bit of clutter and detailing making the kitchen feel like a natural addition here. And next up, we're going to be taking a look at some of the more, practical rooms in terms of, player use. There's a fairly large library here with numerous bookshelves and bookcases, as well as an NPC librarian who offers a few services, namely alchemical related stuff with alchemical equipment and potions that you can buy, but she also can, recharge your enchanted items for a price as well. And as you might expect, given that this mod is in our Mage themed episode and all, there is in fact a magical lab complete with altars of enchanting and spellmaking, as well as alchemical equipment, ingredient and potion storage, and even some hidden ingredient gardens that you can find, and just harvest for your brews. And because this is a player home, there's also quite naturally a display hall for you to store and show off your stuff in, with dozens of display cases, weapon racks and chests to throw any extra items you might need to store away into. And finally, there's also a large pool area in the basement, though why the water's red I don't really know. That may well be a glitch on my part, who can say. In any event, Theron is a beautiful and breathtaking palace and city, ideal for those, sort of mage lords who want to gaze from afar on the mere mortals down below from a lofty perch of all the luxuries and comforts of civilization. It's definitely a nice house mod to check out. For NPC Mod Week this week, we have Minus Magic Companions by Chris Ist 1451. Now, as the name of this mod would imply, this is a companion mod that adds 11 new companions to the game for you to find, including both male and female companions, as well as a handful of pets, and just, scattered across Nin and the various magical realms handed by Midas Magic. And indeed, Midas Magic is quite obviously a requirement to use this mod, as all the companions are equipped with various Midas Magic spells, and for the most part, you'll find your new companions in the new realms handed by the Midas Magic mod, usually somewhere, pretty close to the gate, and for the most part, they don't have any quests for you to do or anything like that. They'll just join up with you right away and follow you wherever you go. For easy transportation, you can always use the Mark and Recall spells from Midas Magic, which we showcased earlier, to bring your companions together in a little, sort of pocket realm. And of course, each of these companions has a wide array of companion features, including special combat, party and inventory commands, so you can provide your companions with, quite a few instructions. And now, to say the least, each companion added by this mod is, well, quite unique looking, with custom clothing, armor, and weapons, and not to mention, certain magical specialties, such as, particular Midas magic spells that they might cast. And these companions certainly do stand out, and vary from the menacing to the angelic, and even the, sort of machine-like. And even though they won't say as much here, the mod's download page and readme file includes a detailed background on each of them. And in any event, I sort of just real quick wanted to demonstrate what these magical companions are, capable of doing. And since the vanilla Oblivion dungeons aren't particularly challenging, we're going to run through a bit of the Scarlet Monastery here again, just to show off the fighting powers of these companions. And they really are, quite impressive. They can mow down opponents quickly and efficiently, and should be, quite a boon to your travels. And they might even be, just a bit overpowered, since there's, not really a whole lot of requirements for recruiting them, outside of finding them anyway. But all in all, this is a great companion mod with a lot of variety and, of course, magical ability. So if you're looking for some more, just companions to travel around Cyrodiil with you, this mod would be well worth taking a look at. This week's new meshes and textures mod of the week is Oblivion Staff Replacer by Strike 105X and Trollif. And yes, I know, this is another staff-related mod, and, we've already shown off one of these today, but this one is a bit different. This one replaces the staffs of Oblivion with the custom staff models of Trollif. And to start off our showcase here, we're going to just, take a quick look at a few of these in the inventory screen. One of the biggest issues with vanilla Oblivion, in terms of, staffs anyway, was that there really wasn't much in the way of variety. Nearly everything was the same old, wooden staff. Well, with this mod, there's, now a bit more variety, and a staff of Lesser Burden doesn't look exactly the same as a staff of Greater Burden, or a staff of Froststorm, or, what have you. There's quite obviously several different models used here, and we're going to take a look at just a few of these here, including a new sort of wooden staff that's basically a copy of the wooden staff from Morrowind. There's also a number of, sort of crystal-like staffs with blue or red or yellow crystals just embedded at the top here, and the color of the crystal, sort of depends on what type of, magic they cast. And there's even a few, Daedric staffs here with a sort of spider-like top to them, giving them a more, evil appearance. And there's also a unique crystal here for particularly healing types of magic. And all this makes, finding and collecting these magical wizard items a bit more exciting, since every staff no longer looks exactly the same. And that's a good thing, since every proper mage and wizard needs one. This is a simple and straightforward replacer that, just makes a slight change that goes a long way, and is certainly worth taking a look at. Finally, for our underrated mod of the week this week, we have Arthmoor, the Wizard's Home by Horinif, and I do apologise if I mispronounced the name there. I'm not really quite sure how you pronounce the mod name. But anyway, this is really another house mod, and yes, I'm aware that means that we've ended up, having a total of 3 house mods in one episode, and I realise that's perhaps a bit much. But Arthmoor here is a bit more than your typical house mod, and for everything it contains, it's surprisingly underrated, with very few endorsements on the Nexus. And first and foremost, you'll have to complete a short quest and dungeon before you can claim this home as your own. And indeed, this ancient alien tower starts out in a ruined state, and only by collecting a certain number of crystals can you restore it to its former glory. And to say the least, this is an extremely massive and unique player home. And we're going to spend just a couple of minutes, flying around the exterior here because it is really quite impressive. The tower here is built alongside a mountain, with various scenic gardens, balconies, and fountains overlooking Cyrodiil down the mountain slopes below here. And you'll notice there's multiple levels of platforms here, each decorated with statues, flowers, and trees, making for just a really breathtaking scene. And I won't lie, the FPS can, drop quite a bit here, especially on lower-end machines. This home can be a bit of a, performance hog. It should also be noted that this player house does come with a patch for unique landscapes, so you can use the 2 mods together if you so desire. And now, in addition to the lower level gardens that we just looked at, you'll also find a number of platforms towards the top of the tower here, including a sort of, observatory from which you can gaze into the interior of the Cyrodiil countryside, and also a sort of neat little outdoor dining area with a glass dome. That's just again quite scenic with some just really amazing views, the perfect place to, take a meal and enjoy a warm summer day. And heading on inside, one of the first rooms you'll find is this rather atmospheric chamber with blue lighting, and this is in fact the throne room. Though, as far as throne rooms go, it's a bit small. But anyway, just moving on here. We're next going to be taking a look at the main central chambers of this beautiful tower abode. And much like the exterior, the central chambers is composed of multiple levels of platforms here, with steps and teleportation portals leading between each one. And the uppermost part of this chamber here is the master bedroom, which includes a number of windows looking out into the exterior world space, as well as various shelves for storing and displaying items, and of course, a master bed. And needless to say, these chambers are really quite scenic and wonderfully decorated, almost having the appearance of a garden, or a statue garden at any rate. But heading down to the lower levels of the central chamber, you'll find the main entry hall, including areas to display items, doors leading to other chambers, a library with numerous books lining some of the shelves here, and there's also a study off to the side. And everything here is just really quite ornate and grand in appearance. As with the Aelia Palace we looked at earlier, this tower home is fairly massive, and truth be told, we're going to be skipping over a number of rooms in order to save time. But just taking a look at a few more chambers here, you'll find a sort of secondary display hall and bedroom down on one of the other levels of the tower, including some just really atmospheric lighting. And to say what you will about this mod, the atmosphere is pretty top-notch overall. And I should mention that there is a quest or two included here to add various tower upgrades, though these quests appear to be hidden, and you'll have to find them for yourself. And one last room that we're going to be taking a look at here, because this is, after all, a wizard's home, and this is a magic-themed episode and all. You'll naturally find a magic lab with all sorts of magical tools for you to use, including alchemical equipment and an assortment of other magical odds and ends, including a couple of small ingredient cartons. And all in all, this is certainly a very scenic and very atmospheric house mod to call your own. And that wraps up this episode of Oblivion Modding Showcases. We'll be back in about 2 weeks, I would say, with episode 7, which is very nearly complete at the moment. And this should result in a more regular schedule going forward. I will just go ahead and announce that episode 8, our next themed episode, will be Alien themed. So if you have any particular mods you'd like to see showcased, please let me know in the comments below. And in any event, thanks for watching, and I'll see you all next time.